Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. Today is Monday. David, how are we doing today?
I'm doing really, really well today. We'll see how I'm doing tomorrow with my Irish playing for a championship tonight. So.
Yes, recording this on Sunday. Yep. This episode will go up Monday. Jeez, that's a task. That's a task for Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's a big ask, but hey, they're there, and only two teams have a chance to win it, and Notre Dame's one of them. So I'm pulling for them, and hopefully they're going to get a win, and I'll be all happy on Tuesday. Otherwise, we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, can't say that Notre Dame doesn't have a chance, and I can say with full certainty at this point, never take a team that generally seems very dominant and to win every game possible.
Yeah, sorry about the Detroit Lions. It's a tough end to their really, really good year. Just ouch. It's just tough.
Yeah, I mean, and I got to give credit to the Commanders. They played probably the best game possible. And at that point, the better team in that game won. But it does suck just to see a team that was so dynamic and fun and had everything going for them really just, not to speak ill of Jared Goff, but just fumble the ball right at the end zone. So, is what it is. It's disappointing, but it was a fun season. I'm sure all the Kansas City Chiefs fans that listen, which is probably the majority of our listeners, I bet you're having a great time. Hey, who knows what happens? That three-peat, that is right there in front of you. Yeah.
They got have to win one more game to get there, and so we'll see what happens this weekend. So good for them.
Enough about football. Let's talk about some high school basketball that happened over the past week. We had some exciting games, I would say.
We did. We had some really exciting games, and games that kind of were fun to be a part of, games that, were kind of surprising. So
let's talk about, so we recorded on Wednesday, and we put out our top 10. Immediately, Crothersville beat South Pemiscott.
Of course they did. But we said it was very possible. It was
possible, yeah.
Yeah, we said that was a possibility, and Crothersville again. They've not played a lot of teams around here. We weren't really sure what they had, and obviously they're a good team, and we've had them in and out of our top 10 this year, and they're a good team, and I'm sure that they'll be making an appearance in our top 10 in our next episode. But they're a good team, and South Pem, they're playing some good teams as well, and it was a good battle, but Crothersville pulled it out at the end, and they're very athletic, and they're going to be, I think right now they're the favorite maybe in that Class 3 District 1.
Yeah, I can imagine so. What I think was probably the difference in this game is that I think South Pemiscott was just gassed because they just had to play that tough game against Hayti.
Yeah, it doesn't help you whenever you've been playing so many games in a row. You didn't play for about a month, and then all of a sudden you're playing 3, 4, 5 games in 6-7 days, and that's certainly, especially when you play a team like Crothersville who's going to get it up and down the floor and really push the tempo. So, that definitely played a part in it. But they may see each other again in the Boot Hill Conference Tournament, and that we'll see how that plays out. But a really good game, and two good teams going at it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of helps South Pemiscott that Crothersville is Class 3, so you're not going to have to see each other again.
Yeah, not going to see them in the districts for sure.
Which, so. I mean, you're already competing with Hayti in that spot, so that is a pretty stacked, set of teams down south for sure.
Absolutely. Boot Hill Conference is loaded this year. I mean, they got a lot of talented teams.
So let's talk about Woodland and Richland too, because that game, Richland kind of had them on the back foot for a minute.
Yeah, Richland jumped out on them pretty quick. Barney did the same thing to Woodland earlier in the year, but Woodland doesn't blink, and they just continued to come at them and ended up winning that game. And I've been on Woodland all year. They're a good team. They've got multiple guys that can score. They play hard. They're tough to defend because you can't just guard just one guy. You've got there's multiple guys that can get you, and they're just a little bit better than Richland. But I thought Richland was game for that game. Tilly really kind of came out and played well.
20 points.
Yeah, he played well, and Woodland. I mean, just give hand it to them. They just don't quit. I mean, even if they get behind it, they don't blink, and they just continue to come at you. And Richland just finally folded a little bit there, but it's not for lack of trying. Richland played well, and just Woodland was just a little bit better.
No, I think it really shows that Woodland is probably going to earn that 1 seed in the Stoddard County Conference. They really, every obstacle in their way. I mean, other than one loss in the Christmas tournament, I mean, you can't even determine that as being like a detriment to their season at this point, just because they're playing such dominant games.
Yeah, and I mean they've just played so well all year, and Woodland, their only loss was to Cape Central, a Cape Central team that's very athletic and matches up very well with the Woodland. So we'll see how this county tournament plays out. But I'm like you, I think they would be the 1 seed. And a tough 1 seed. They're kind of my favorite right now going in, the favorite to win it. So we'll see how that plays out. But they're a very good basketball team. Yeah,
and at this point, I'm kind of starting just to feel bad for Richland. Just getting updates on scoring from that game at halftime. Woodland was just up by 2. And my boss had told me that, Richland was 10 points ahead. At one point, and then I told him Richland's going to Richland at this point.
Yeah, and it's really not. And that's it's true, but it's also Richland's they played well that game. It was just that Woodland's just a little better, mm-hmm. And sometimes teams are just a little bit better, and in that case, I just thought Woodland was a better team, and again they're so tough because there's so many guys that you got to account for, and one lapse and you're paying for it, and it's just a tough ask, and I thought Richland played pretty well though, but Woodland at the end of the day was better.
Yeah, definitely a tough ask. I mean, this Woodland team, they're probably going to go blow for blow with Puxco, mm-hmm. And so that's a tough thing to deal with.
That's the game that everybody wants to see. I don't know if we'll see it, but that's definitely the game that everybody wants to see. So we'll see how that plays out.
Let's move on to some Thursday games. A team we've been, I would say, sleeping on at this point. Zenith Hornersville at Crothersville, 69-48.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Zenith, but they're obviously not a bad team. But Crothersville is kind of rolling right now. But Zenith, I'm anxious to see Zenith play at some point. I just have not got to see them play yet, so I really don't know much about them. But they've kind of flown under the radar, like you said, and they're a team that I think we probably need to catch an eye on. They've got a really good record, and they're not a bad team.
No, and I mean, like you said, we just don't have eyes on them. But just from that box score, I mean, that's coming up from a Crothersville team that just beat South Penn too. I mean, to me, that's impressive just to be able to take it right back to them. And maybe Crothersville had the same problem that they had with South Penn, is that maybe they were just a little bit gassed.
Maybe. I didn't have eyes on this game, so I really don't know. But obviously, Zenith is a team that we need to pay attention to, as is Crothersville. I mean, Crothersville, we just talked about them, but they're a good team. So.
Moving on, Charleston at Scott County Central, 89-64.
Yeah, Charleston's just rolling right now. I mean, they're Scott Central's down, but Charleston has found this up-tempo basketball that they like to play. They're really getting after people defensively. They're getting up and down the floor, and they got after Scott County Central at their place. And there's again, Charleston's a team where they've found multiple guys that can score. And they're getting better and better, day by day. And they're going to be a tough team come district time, and they're just a very good team right now.
Yeah, we kind of sung their praises on Wednesday, but they're just getting better and better. And everybody said watch out for Charleston during the postseason, and this is finally when I'm starting to believe that this is probably, they're just on all cylinders, working just so good together. They just got a player back, right?
Yeah, I believe they got Tayshawn Clark back for Thursday night. I didn't see in the box score if he was in the box score or not. I didn't see in the box score to be back on Thursday night. He's somebody who's really going to help them, and just gives them another score, another quick athletic player, and that's all they need to go with their other quick athletic players, which every one of them are for the most part. So, that's just they just throw that pressure at you defensively and turn that into points, and they'll get up and down the floor. And then, if they get into the half court, they have the ability to hit the three, and they just get after you defensively so much. It's just tough. Now whenever they're playing these bigger SEMO conference teams, obviously that doesn't play as well because they're kind of used to it. But when they're playing these smaller schools like Scott County Central, I mean, they just can overwhelm those teams, and they have been. You know, Scott County Central, Kelly, New Matter the other night. That was some really some really good basketball that they've been playing lately, and we'll see. They're playing in the Superman Classic this week, so we'll see how that plays out. They usually play pretty well over there. It's a really tough tournament, so we'll get to see how much better they've gotten from the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I kind of want to. I really wish that Sykeston Charleston game did happen, just because I want to see how they would have improved from the SEMO conference to now.
Yeah. I'm hoping that game does happen at some point. We'll see, but to this point, I'm not aware of it being rescheduled.
So the game that we covered on A-Corp Sports this past week, game that we were both at, Dexter at Bernie, ended that game in overtime, 68-70.
Yeah, two teams that just played their guts out. I thought both teams played extremely hard. Both teams played well. Both teams had some things happen that weren't good, but for the most part, I mean, it was a fun game to watch. I mean, it was just a up and down game, and you're not going to see a better high school basketball game for sure. For Bernie, Kate Hobgood, I mean, he just went nuts in the second half. I think he had finished with 25, but a ton of threes, and Aycock just dominated the middle. He just absolutely dominated the middle. Dexter would not go inside whenever, which I didn't understand. I'm like, I know he blocked a few shots, but you got to continue to go at him. And he fouled out of the game at the end of the fourth. Maybe you get him out earlier if you continue to go at him. But Dexter was just completely intimidated and just pretty much settled for 3-point shots there, mostly in the second half until Aycock left the game. And I think that was kind of the difference. But Bernie played really well. Dexter's got to learn how to close these close games. I mean, they played well enough to win that game, but you've got to find ways to make plays at the end, and they weren't able to do that. But Devin Turnbow, he had a game too. I think 17 points, 24 boards, something like that.
Well, he just throws himself at every point that he's trying to score.
Yeah, he's playing football on a basketball court, and I love to see that aggressiveness from him, and 24 rebounds in a basketball game. That's pretty impressive, and he's not a big guy. He's 6'1", but I mean he doesn't have that big presence inside the way Aycock does. But man, he was able to get a lot of rebounds, and it was just a great basketball game. And I tell you what, Bernie, if I'm not mistaken, did not get a rebound after Aycock left the game. I don't think they got a single rebound, and we're still able to win that game. Yeah. And it was they just made the plays when they had to, hit the shots when they had to, made the free throws, and Dexter just came up and missed those shots at the end. But it was a really, really fun game, and I really hope they play again in the Stoddard County tournament, because that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, I can imagine, Stoddard County implications at this point. Dexter's obviously probably going to move down a seed compared to Bernie. Yeah,
I would think Bernie the 4, Dexter the 5. If I had to, guess it right now, I think they're going to seed on Tuesday. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm pretty sure it would be Bernie 4, Dexter 5, maybe Bernie 3, Richland 4. I would, Bernie might have got themselves up to the 3 seed. I mean, that wouldn't shock me either. So, but yeah, that'll be a. I just hope at some point in that tournament Dexter gets to play Bernie again, because that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, if it ends up being a revenge game at that point, I feel like it might have a different outcome. But at this moment, Dexter, like you said, Dexter needs to learn to close, because easily at this point they could have, an 11-4 season instead of a 7-8.
Yeah, I've got them. I actually wrote it down here: Poplar Bluff, Richland, Puxco, and Bernie. Those 4 games that I feel like they could have won if they could have just closed the game.
Yeah.
They all 4 of those games they had, and they let the other team come in and win it. At the end. So,
what do you think's the disconnect at this point?
Just young. I really do believe that you have to learn how to win. And sometimes, you expect bad things to happen whenever you continue to give up these leads. All it takes is a win or two, like in these games, to figure out a way to close. And it's just little things. You just have to do the little things to win these games. Just like, I mean, you've got to help off on Massey there at the end of the game on his shot from the short corner. You've got to help off on him, because that time's running down. So you can't just have him one-on-one. Somebody's got to come down and help on him. Maybe make that shot a little tougher. it's just little things. You got one turnover here, one turnover there that you don't make. Maybe you don't attack the basket. Against Puxico, maybe you don't attack the basket. You hold for one shot instead of going at the rim there. And maybe you hold off enough to win that game. Just little things. And they're things that these guys are going to learn as they go, and play more basketball and play more and more of these close games, because it seems like 90% of Dexter's games are close like this. I think there's only been maybe 3 games that haven't been like really close, 3 or 4 games. So, they just have to, just continue to play these games and learn from, each one of these games that they lose, they just got to learn from it and don't make that same mistake the next game.
Yeah. Well, how many juniors is Dexter rocking right now?
Let me see. I think Sepulvedo's a junior, and then Turnbow's a junior, and then I think the sophomores, you got Geatley and Ibrahim, and and then Temples is a senior. I think Carter Stone may be a sophomore or junior. He's an underclassman. Anniser's an underclassman. So, there's only one, Temples is the only senior, so everybody else is underclassmen. So
most likely coming back for next year.
Yeah, so you're going to have a lot back next year. You'll have the Nichols kid coming up off of the 8th grade team that I'm sure is going to make a difference for them next year as well. So, this is a team that could be really good next year. And, you just got, again, you're just learning. This year you just kind of learned to win these close games, and hopefully by the end of the year you've learned how to not make those mistakes in these close games, and because there's every chance that they could make a run in district. With Notre Dame and Kennett in there, those are winnable games. I would assume Notre Dame is the favorite, but those are winnable games. So you can you can get in there and maybe win a district this year, and then really catapult yourself into next year whenever you've got probably even a better team.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like we're giving a little favoritism to Dexter in this conversation, not to discredit Bernie at all and what they did. Like you said, John Aycock, his ability to just keep Dexter away from the rim, that was very impressive. That's the kind of game he was wanting to have too. It's just he puts his all into it. Really excelled at blocking. It was just great to see.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with him. He just continues to get better and better, and
he's a sophomore.
Yeah, and he's a sophomore. He just dominated Dexter. And, not only him, but there's so many guys on that team that they can hit outside shots. You can't just really just focus on one guy. On the broadcast, it's like, well, you can't leave him open. But honestly, you can't leave any of them open, because any of them can hit those outside shots, and they're all good players. They all know their roles really well. Their ball handling is still a little bit, sketchy at times. I would say passing is probably kind of their worst aspect right now. They pressure can kind of get to them a little bit. Dexter was trying to put some pressure on them, but here's the thing: is even though they made those mistakes, they just continued to come at you, and they never back down, and that's a sign of a Coach Long team. He's always going to have his team ready to go defensively, and I thought they played really well defensively. Dexter they made Dexter shoot like 35, 36 threes. Just basically zoned them up and said, hey, we're going to make you beat us from outside. They almost did, but they almost shot themselves out of it as well. So Coach Long's always going to have them ready, and again they've got a bunch of sophomores. I think they start 4 sophomores, and they've got a bunch of guys that just know how to play basketball already, and that's another team that's going to be really good next year.
Yeah, I think if they can get their fundamentals and kind of scoring just up that like next tier, they're going to be such a great team. It is funny that they really tried to force Dexter to be a 3-point team, because sometimes that's where Dexter just completely excels at. Put a little pressure on them. They make some shots. Those mistakes add up. Obviously, turnovers add up too. I think that's one of Dexter's biggest Achilles heels right now, is that they just can't keep the ball in play.
Yeah, and turnovers was another big thing for them. But that Bernie defense is tough, and I really like the idea of, hey, make Dexter hit it from outside, and if they beat us, they beat us. We can, they can always pull out of that zone. But there was no reason. Dexter was kind of hot in the first half, but didn't have a big lead going into halftime. So you come back out in the second half, and of course they weren't as hot. They missed a lot of threes, and so then all of a sudden Bernie retakes the lead there, and everything kind of works out. It's a 4-quarter game, and you've got to understand that the 3-point shooting is a good team maybe shoots 35, 38%, 40% at best, you would think. And so you're missing most of your shots. And Aycock was cleaning up some rebounds there for the longest time, and dominating the inside. So, it was I thought it was a good strategy. And but Dexter would have to, Dexter just missed one too many basically, and it ended up costing them. But man, it was a it was a good game start to finish. And, I said Bernie will be a good team next year. I tell you what, I don't want to play Bernie in that district now.
No, they're a good team now.
I don't want to play them in district. That's a team that is a definite, going to be a definite factor in their district tournament and has a chance to make a run.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest credits to them is it was kind of shaky on like how is adding Hobgood back into this rotation, how's it going to affect the team? Didn't affect them in a poor way at all.
Oh, pretty 25-point way.
Such a clutch player on his debut back.
And he just no emotion. You've got some of those guys out there from Bernie who are real emotional and really fire up. Hobgood is just so even keel, just at all times, and he just never. It's just like the moment never gets too big for him. And boy, he was able to make these shots and just ice in his veins, and just a really nice player. He's just going to get better. But he's a really nice player.
All right, let's move on to Friday. First game on my listing, I have Kennett at Notre Dame, 38-63.
Yeah, Dohan just killed him inside, especially in the first half. Kennett just couldn't do anything with him. And that's kind of, I think, Kennett's Achilles heel. They just really don't have a post presence. And if you've got a post guy that they can really go at you, and Notre Dame kind of built a big lead. Kennett then kind of sunk their defense in, and Notre Dame just passed it outside, and Johnson killed them from the outside in the second half. It was just they just didn't have an answer for what Notre Dame had. They shut Dyson Watson down. I think he only had 13 points. 6 of them, I think, were from the free throw line too. So they really kept him. They sunk the zone, really kept him from getting to the rim. And so it was a really good defensive effort from Notre Dame, and kind of a statement of, hey, we're still the favorite in our district. Yeah,
well, I feel like that's been Notre Dame's MO for the entire year at this point, just to increase your defensive presence and then sink as many threes as you can. So it doesn't really surprise me. It kind of does surprise me that Kennett kind of got locked out that easily because they've been so explosive on offense this year.
Yeah, and they just did a really, I think as Watson goes, so goes Kennett, and they just kind of locked him down, and he just wasn't able to do anything. He wasn't able to, really get to the rim. Wasn't hitting his outside shot as well as he has in the past, and just was not a great Dyson Watson game. So. And if he's not having a great game, typically Kennett's not having a great game. So because we found out in the Christmas tournament, they really struggle to find that scoring without him. So I think that's something that Kennett really needs to work on is find that number 2, number 3 scorer on their team so they can help him out a little bit and free him up a little bit, because teams are obviously zoning in on him and knowing that's what we got to do is to stop him.
Yeah, and I think those playmakers are on that team already in that starting 5. It's just there has to be some cohesion and some, like you said, somebody stepping up to really just hit that 2-3 spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on to Scott City at East Prairie, 59-52.
And that was a game that everybody was looking forward to, and it was a great game. It was a back and forth game. East Prairie kind of got the lead in the fourth, and then Scott City kind of pulled away. But Kobe Watson and Braden Walton they had great games, 17 each. And I think the key was shutting Noah Johnson down. He only had 11, and they really didn't let them get out in transition. And East Prairie excels when they can get out in transition, force turnovers, get out and get those easy layups, and get up and down. And I thought Scott City kind of used the Dexter plan of what Dexter did against East Prairie, and it was very similar. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of what East Prairie kind of found the kryptonite a little bit. That if they can't get out and run, can't get out in transition, if you get back and don't let them have the easy shots and really force them into a half court game, I think that really is kind of their kryptonite. Yeah, and kind of from what I noticed, just from watching a little bit of the game, despite what the score was like in the fourth, at that point, it never felt like Scott City was rattled by that at all. Yeah. They always felt like they were in control of this game. Yeah, they just never panic. They know that hey, they're going to make a run, and it was almost like an NBA type game. Hey, we know they're going to make a run. We just have to sustain the run and just continue doing what we're doing and not change our game plan. And they didn't, and it ended up panning out for them. But that kind of gives Scott City the upper hand in that Scott Miss Conference. They'll probably get the top seed. It's going to be at Scott City, so that's going to be another benefit for them. So Scott City is they're getting primed for that. I know that they want that matchup with Woodland in the district. So
that's gonna be such a fun game.
Yeah. So I know they're getting primed for that, and again, that they probably are going to be the top seed in that district. So they just have to, right now, Scott City just has to hold serve and just continue to play well, continue to get better, and work toward that district tournament, because that's going to be a heck of a tournament.
Yeah, and I've heard several people say, like, Puxico's are number 2 typically in the weeks right now. People are saying, I don't know, I think Scott City might be the better team at this point.
And yeah, obviously they won Scott City lost the first game, but they certainly have made the statement of, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be able to, they play Cape Central, I believe, Monday night. That'll be a game that I'm interested to see how they match up against them. But it's a team that is definitely. I mean, just continue to work toward that district tournament, keep getting better.
All right. Sikeston at St. Mary's, 71-52.
Yeah, and that was a game that we wanted to see. We wanted to see Sikeston win against a good team. St. Mary's is a good team. Do
you think they were – so Markel Murray being out against that Farmington team, do you think that made all the difference at this point?
No.
But do you think Sikeston had something to prove in this game?
Absolutely. I would not wanted to have been at one of their practices the days after the Farmington game. I heard they were pretty intense. Talked about they talk about toughness and attitude. And if you're working on toughness and attitude in a basketball practice, those are practices I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, that feels like a black and blue practice.
Yeah.
By the end of it.
And they came out and they had a point to make, and I think they made that statement that we're better than that. We had an off game. We're better than that. And Zyrie Collins, he had 21, I believe, but I mean that's 15 points under his average or so. I mean, they did a really nice job against him, and just basically said, we're going to make these other guys beat us on St. Mary's. They weren't able to. Sikeston took control of that game early, and again made their statement, and like we said, we wanted to see them beat a good team. They got another good team coming up here on Monday, but this is a team that needed that win, and we're able to go out and get it and make it and get it in a big way.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that Sikeston is this team that flirts with greatness, obviously. That they always need these attitude adjustment games, though.
Well, and all teams do. I was at the New Madrid Cairo game, which is, I'm sure we're going to talk about that in here in a minute. But that was there are times during games and times during the season when you just have to have an attitude adjustment and just come check with me game and check with me time and every team has it, and this was Sikeston's. And Sikeston, this was the time to get it right moment, and they did. And so now you go out and you play a really good Callaway County team on Monday, and maybe you win, maybe you don't, but I promise you they're going to go out and they're going to play hard, and they're going to have have some toughness to them and some stuff that they felt that they didn't have against Farmington.
It's a pretty back and forth. Well, I wouldn't say back and forth. They tend to play that game relatively close sometimes, and sometimes they just blow that team out. I was looking just kind of at Misha records. I think the overall record's 11-2 or something like that. But it's never it doesn't feel like it's ever possibly an easy game. It's not a layup game for Sikeston.
No, it's never. And Sikeston's they're a team that is they're playing a tougher schedule this year in order to get tougher for that district tournament and that state run. And we've talked about that, and they need these tough games. And so they need tough games like this, and we'll see how they play here against Callaway County.
So that's all the games I have on my listing. But you mentioned Cairo and New Madrid County Central.
Yeah, that was a really good game. New Madrid pulled it out 54-52. They were down 31-11 early in the first half, or about early second quarter. They were down 31-11, ended up winning 54-52.
So what halftime adjustments do you make there?
It was not even a halftime adjustment. It was a timeout. There was a turnover and a dunk for Cairo to go ahead 31-11. A timeout was called, and let's just say that Coach Jenkins got into him a little bit. He made a point, made a statement, and kind of went to the younger kids. Went back to some freshmen for this game. There's some upperclassmen that weren't there for beta or some reason they weren't there. And so they had to go back to their younger kids, and I believe a point was made, and a attitude adjustment was made at that point, and New Matter dominated that game from that point, and were able to hold off and win the game. Jaden Williams, Isaac Smith, and Tice Palmer, the freshmen, really played well. Coming down the stretch, we talk about Dexter learning how to win games. This is a game that New Matter kind of learned how to win this game close down the stretch. And, Cairo's not the best team, but they're not a bad team. And they just completely shut them down in the second half. They were, Cairo could not buy a basket, and New Matter was all over them defensively. And it could be a turning point for New Matter, not just maybe for this year, but for next year, as far as some of these younger kids and it finally kind of clicking the defensive to offensive thing. So, they didn't, they still had turnovers, they still made mistakes, but it was one of those games where they really kind of turned it around and played well and got the win. So, kudos to them. But it was you just mentioned we mentioned the attitude adjustment. There was an attitude adjustment in that game that really turned that game around, I thought. Which
we mentioned that kind of last episode on Wednesday, is that New Madrid needs those wins to kind of learn how to win.
Yeah.
And the expectation on that freshman class is immense at this point. So to get that win under their belt, especially in the circumstances that they're coming from, that's exactly what you need. Which they play next. Do they play Cape Central soon?
They play Cape Central on Tuesday.
That's going to be a harsh game.
Yeah, it'll be harsh. And then they play Dexter on Friday. So, their schedule doesn't get any easier. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and win these games, but for them, I think they have to play these younger guys. I really do. They're a better team when they play these younger guys, because when you play your older guys, you're getting beat 50 by Charleston. And you just can't do that. I mean, these younger guys, I think, are a little better. And I think they need to be playing, and I think this proves that they need to be playing. That they were able to come back and win this game after being down early, and it's, I don't know. I like where the way they played this game, and I like the improvement that they've made over the course of the last few weeks. These younger guys. What's funny is these younger guys, they lost the JV game against Cairo. They lost. It was a close game at the end. They lost it, by a couple points, and then were able to come in and were able to help the varsity get the win. Mm-hmm. So, it was like almost watching them evolve during this night, because the mistakes that they made in that JV game, they did not make in the varsity game as it got down the stretch. And it was just really nice to see that, guys like Jaden Williams and Isaac Smith. Isaac Smith really had a really good game inside for New Madrid, especially in the second half, and just got a lot of rebounds, some good. And of course, Ramon Brooks, I don't want to leave him out. He's a senior he had a double and was as good as he is every game. But these younger guys, they really kind of stepped up and matured a little bit.
Which is great to see. It's great to see that the torch is finally getting passed, that, in a way that doesn't feel so just like we're panicking.
Right.
Natural progression. That's what we want to see from New Madrid. Exactly. That's kind of what we said at the very start of the season, was just like, well, they have a lot of expectations, but it's not, we can't put the world on them. But, they haven't been performing even to their own standard at that point. So to see them, kind of bounce back, that's what you need from that team.
Sometimes you just need to ignore the outside voices of who should be playing and who shouldn't be playing. And sometimes you should just go with okay, look, this is what we need to do, not only for this year, but for the future.
Yeah.
And hopefully I think that may have happened a little bit in this game. And I think maybe some of the outside voices maybe saw, look, we're better with this group on the floor, but we'll see. We'll see how the season plays out.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's a coaching decision. Sometimes you have to make those. Mm-hmm. Any upcoming games that you're really looking forward to? I have a couple listed down.
I start to say Sykes and Callaway County. Obviously, that's the game that I'm looking forward to as far as Monday goes. Callaway County, they're 16-2. They've got three really good players. They've got a kid named Jonah Butler, 6'5", going to Stony Brook. Already signed with them. And they got a 6'2" guard that's pretty good, is Eli Finley. He's a good guard. He's getting some looks. And they got another 6'5" sophomore that's a really good player. They've got some guys that can play. 16-2 in Kentucky. That's tough basketball over there. So, so it'll be on, and it's on the road. So, Sykes gonna be over there, and it's going to be a tough game, but we'll see how they play that game, and who knows how it comes out. But it's a game they need. It's a game they need to play against a really tough team.
What do you think's changed from this year from last year? Because last year Sykeston won that game, I want to say 104-80.
I don't think they played Callaway County last year.
Maybe I got that wrong on Mish's.
I think I don't remember them playing. I think it's the first time they played Callaway County in a while. So I don't know. I don't remember them playing them last year for sure. But they're. I mean, this is typically Sykeston does not go out of state and play. I mean, if you really look at their schedule, they've kind of stopped that in the last 5 to 10 years where they don't really play out of state. So this is kind of a one of those going out of state deals that they usually don't do. So we'll see how it works out for them. No,
and like you said, Sykeston needs those hard games. So to keep improving on what they're doing, and from what you're kind of mentioning about the player stats for Callaway, that sounds like a stacked team.
Yeah, they've got some height, and they've got some guys that can really get out there and shoot it. They just lost to Marshall County, who's really, really good. Anybody knows anything about Kentucky basketball knows Marshall County is always really good, and they just lost to them. But they're a good team. So we'll see how it plays out.
I've got Cape Central and Scott City.
Yeah, that's
down for Monday.
Yeah, that's another good one. I'm anxious to see how Scott City plays, in this game. See how much better they've gotten. We'll see. It's a it's a good matchup for them. Scott City, I think, is deeper than Cape, but Cape's got a lot more athletes, and they're going to be tough to guard inside. But Scott City's got a little bit of size, so they might be able to match up with them okay. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think it's a good game for both teams, to be honest. Yeah,
well, I think the separation for Cape Central is, like you said, athletic talent, but I don't feel like they have that team cohesion that they really need to.
Yeah, I've not been
big games.
Yeah, I've not been impressed with them, especially offensively this year. I feel like they're better getting up and down the floor. I talked about that last pod, but I feel like they're better getting up and down the floor than they are in the half court. Obviously, Coach Frazier sees something that he wants in that half court. So we'll see how that that plays out. But I think that kind of plays into Scott City a little bit. I feel like Scott City can play that half court game as well as they can get up and down the floor. So we'll see what happens.
What do you think Lamont Frazier's brought from Poplar Bluff to Cape Central at this point? I know that must be an adjustment for Cape Central to kind of work with his scheming, but do you think that's going to improve over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, as he gets these guys in and they learn his offense that he wants to run, it'll just be better and better. That's kind of any coach. The longer you're in a system, the more you get it and the more you understand it. So it's tough for this year. And I think it could be a fight of, hey, this is the way I want to play. This is the way you want to play. And it could be that may be why, like you said, there's like some cohesion issues there. So we'll see as the season goes along how that plays out. But man, I like it when they get up and down the floor. We saw a few times when they would do that in the SEMO Conference tournament. They just look so good getting up and down the floor, running, and they're so athletic and whenever they're in that half court, they're just not as much. I feel like they are kind of struggling to figure out exactly what they need to be doing.
I feel like they're easy to frustrate too sometimes.
Yeah, when they're in that half court. So I don't know. Again, there's a reason that I'm here behind the mic and I'm not coaching and I'm not holding a whistle. So I'm sure he knows more than we do.
Any other games on Monday that you're looking forward to?
Not really on Monday. There's several games on Tuesday though. They're pretty good. So.
First one I got listed for there is Campbell and Crothersville.
Yeah, I've got that one marked too. Again, we talk about Crothersville and Campbell's a good team, man. They I really want to see how they match up against a real athletic team. I don't know if we've seen them play a real athletic team other than Hayti, and Hayti, kind of took it to them. But then again, Hayti didn't miss a single shot that game.
They
just on fire.
They played lights out.
They were just on fire. So you kind of put an asterisk by that game. Campbell's got to improve defensively, I think, and we'll see how they match up in this one. But Campbell can score and Campbell can get up and down the floor. So this is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be an up and down game, and I think it's one that you're going to get tired of turning your head, may get a little bit of a sore neck at the end of the game, going back and forth.
What adjustments has Campbell had to make since that loss against Hayti? I
think just defensively, you just got to work on your defense a little bit. And I mean, I don't think they're a bad defensive team, but they gave Hayti just a few too many easy shots in that one. And I'm sure the Coach Fowler's working on that with them, every day. But defense is what I think they need to work on because man, they can score. And they would never go away in that game. They never could just get over that hump and get real close. Every time they would seem to get close, Hayti would hit a shot. So. Just work on getting some more defensive stops, and I think they'll be fine.
Next game I have on my listing is Bloomfield at Bernie.
Yeah, that's another one that you would expect Bernie to win that game. I mean, I think you would expect them to hold serve in that, and I don't expect to see. I kind of expect to see it a lot like the Dexter Bloomfield game, kind of a lower scoring, 47-37, 50-40, that type game. Bloomfield's going to try to drag you down into their type game and slow it down, and Bernie's fine playing that way.
Yeah.
So, but I think Bernie's just got too many scores that I think they're going to, they'll pull this one out.
Yeah. I mean, that's where my mind's at. It's probably going to go how that Dexter game did, but I don't know. Bloomfield, they're sneaky good sometimes.
Yeah. Bernie better come to play. I mean, if Bernie lets down, playing as hard as Dexter and Bernie played the other night, if they played that hard every single game this year, they're winning most of their games. I'm like, both of those teams brought a level of effort that is just above and beyond what you would normally bring.
Well, it's a pretty big rivalry.
And it's a rivalry game. So you want, but you would love to see them match that effort every night.
Absolutely.
And if Bernie matches, it just comes close to that effort, I think they're okay. If they come in and kind of sleepwalk a little bit, Bloomfield could catch them for sure. I mean, Bloomfield's not a bad team, and they'll lull you to sleep. And so you've got to come ready to play and for sure. But I think Bernie at the end just has too many shooters.
No, I can see that. And anything they might do defensively would probably lock down Bloomfield from any points that they might try to get over on them. I don't know. That's one of those where it's just like, I'm confident in Bernie, but it's still head on a swivel. Never look down on your opponent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I certainly would. It would not shock me to see a Bloomfield win there. I mean, that would, I'd be like, no, okay. That's. I mean, Coach Sindel does a good job with them, so they're going to be ready to play.
Next game on my listing, this one I'm not confident about. Puxico at Dexter.
Yeah, I mean, if Dexter brings the same energy again that they brought against Bernie, they come with that same energy they have, especially in the first half against Puxico in the Christmas tournament, I think Dexter can win this game. Now, will they do that? I don't know. It's tough to bring that type of energy every night, and so for me, I mean, I think Puxico wins this game. I think they win it probably double figures, but Dexter's. I mean, I'm not going to completely rule Dexter out. I mean, Dexter matches up better with Puxico than they do Woodland. So I think that they can match up, that way. But they're going to have to play. I mean, they're going to have to hit their outside shots, and they're going to have to attack the inside some. They can't just settle for threes. I mean, they're going to have a well-rounded game here. And Puxico, I'm sure that Burchard, he didn't have the greatest game against Dexter. I'm sure he's going to want to kind of pick that up, and so we'll see what kind of defense Dexter throws at them. But we'll see if they run any kind of boxing one or anything. But I think Burchard has a better game, and I think Puxico probably gets some double figures.
That's pretty much exactly where my mind's at. I just, everything Dexter had going for them in the BCT was all that momentum, and they've got none of that right now.
Yeah.
The only thing I could say is like, well, this could be a revenge game for you, but at the same time, I don't see it. From what I saw in that Bernie game, even when Dexter's playing their guts out, yeah, their mistakes are too crucial.
Mm-hmm. And they cannot turn the ball over. I mean, again, we say it time and time again, you can't turn the ball over. Their guards have got to take care of the ball, and you can't get out of control when you're driving to the rim and the ball come off your leg or what have you. You've got to control the ball, and you can't make those mistakes against Puxico, like you said. You just can't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, as a Dexter guy, I would like to favor Dexter in this game. I just don't see it right now.
Yeah,
I just think Puxico's the better team. Next up on my listing, I've got Poplar Bluff at Jackson.
Yeah, I think Poplar Bluff, they've been playing everybody who's not in Southeast Missouri. Been playing pretty much the entire western part of the state. So you don't know. I don't know how good those teams really are. They've kind of had mixed results, and not the greatest of results. But Jackson comes in and they're playing well. I mean, Jackson, again, their scores are not impressive, but they just win.
Yeah.
And I expect them no different from this game. I expect them maybe a lower scoring game, 50s, 40s. But I expect Jackson to win this game. Maybe not by an impressive score, but I expect them to, Koldeck to get his points. I expect, just a good game overall from them, and just to kind of slow it down and I expect them to beat Poplar Bluff.
Yeah, I don't foresee this to be a very up-tempo game.
No. Jackson neither one of these teams just play much up-tempo basketball.
No, and I think it's a good matchup for Jackson, though, because you really need these, in SEMO conference games to kind of be a better litmus test, just kind of like who you are as a team. Obviously, they're going to be playing Cape Central. Obviously, they're going to be playing Sykeston at a point. But you kind of need to build up to that. And I think this is a good game to kind of get that feel.
Yeah, and, again, I don't know who these teams at Poplar Bluff's been playing. I know they played West Plains and they've played some of these teams, but I don't know what they're really
played Vashon.
Yeah, they played Vashon, but did they really play Vashon or did Vashon play them?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not. I just don't know. Only thing I know about Poplar Bluff is what I saw from the SEMO Conference tournament, and what I saw in the SEMO Conference tournament. That Poplar Bluff team is just not a team that's going to beat a Jackson typically.
But.
Typically,
who knows?
But again, they could have gotten a lot better playing these other teams that that I don't know anything about.
Right.
So.
Do you have any more games that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, South Pembiscott's playing Riverside, I believe, and that was a 1-point game earlier, in this month, I believe, or maybe it was in December when they played, but it was a 1-point game. So that one I'm kind of interested in, and Kennedy's Prairie, I think, is going to be a good game. Can Dyson Watson, kind of get out and score? And if he can get out and score, that game could be an up tempo, up and down game with a lot of points. And it wouldn't shock me to see Kennett, kind of shock East Prairie there. East Prairie coming in, we've seen them come off a loss before. Kind of, how do they react to that loss? So I'm kind of curious on that game as well.
I am too, because like you said, that's one. I think East Prairie needs that get right game against a higher caliber opponent. I don't know what we consider Kennett as, if they're in that higher caliber, but they're a decent team, and they've shocked us before. So if East Prairie gets that win, it's going to feel good for them, obviously. But I think you kind of need that win at this point to gain any momentum for the rest of the season. Yeah,
I think my money would be on East Prairie in that game for sure. But at the same time, Kennett. You come in there, Dyson Watson get hot and get up and down, and all of a sudden you've got a ball game, and what are you going to do, and how do you react off this loss to Scott City? So that's just kind of what I'm curious about. I mean, I think East Prairie should win that game. We'll see if that happens.
Any other games?
That's pretty much what I have down on my list. It's a bunch of good games though.
It's a decent start to the week, and Wednesday we'll definitely have tons to talk about.
Yeah, not only that, but we'll have the Stoddard County tournament. I think that seeds on Tuesday, so we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. We'll have our top 10. We got all kinds of stuff on Wednesday.
Oh yeah. But that's going to do it for this episode, I think. Dave, any final thoughts?
No, just go Irish and enjoy your basketball on Monday and Tuesday night.
Hey, I'll pull for the Irish.
There we go.
All right, this has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thank you for listening.